From the vast, windswept steppes of Mongolia, one name echoes through history, a name synonymous with conquest, empire, and an iron will that reshaped the world. Genghis Khan. But how did a nomadic outcast forge the largest contiguous land empire ever known? It wasn't just charisma, it was war. Today, we're counting down the top 10 most important wars of Genghis Khan. The campaigns that built an empire and left a legacy that still fascinates us centuries later. These aren't just battles, they are the very cornerstones of the Mongol Empire. So saddle up, because we're about to ride into the heart of history. Starting our countdown at number 10 is the conquest of the Uyghur kingdom of Kocho around 1209. Now, this wasn't a war in the traditional sense. The Uyghurs, a prosperous people along the Silk Road, saw the writing on the wall. Instead of resisting the rising Mongol power, their ruler, Barchik Artejin, wisely chose to submit. He declared his allegiance to Genghis Khan, effectively becoming a vassal. Why is this so important? It gave the Mongols control over vital trade routes, access to advanced administrative skills, and, crucially, the Uyghur script, which became the basis for the Mongol written language. This peaceful submission was a strategic masterpiece, securing a key region without shedding a drop of blood and providing the administrative backbone for the future empire. At number 9, we have the subjugation of the Karakutai Khanate in 1218. This campaign was triggered by a fugitive prince, Kukulik, who had usurped the Karakutai throne and begun persecuting his Muslim subjects. The local population pleaded for help, and Genghis Khan saw an opportunity. He dispatched his brilliant general, Jeep, with just 20,000 men. Jeep didn't just fight, he waged a brilliant psychological war. He declared religious freedom, winning over the oppressed populace before the main battles even began. Kukulik was hunted down and eliminated, and the entire region, stretching into modern-day Central Asia, fell under Mongol control. This victory not only secured the Mongols' western flank, but also portrayed Genghis Khan as a liberator, a powerful piece of propaganda that would serve him well in future conquests. Coming in at number 8 is the war against the Merkits and Naimans. This was personal. The Merkits had kidnapped Genghis Khan's wife, Bert, early in his life, and the Naimans were a powerful rival tribe. These weren't just random skirmishes. They were a series of brutal conflicts that defined Temujin's rise from a minor chieftain to the undisputed ruler of the steppes. Through cunning strategy, alliances, and sheer battlefield ferocity, he systematically dismantled these powerful confederations. By 1206, he had crushed his last major rivals. The importance: this is the war that unified the Mongol tribes. It ended the cycle of internal warfare and allowed Genghis Khan to be proclaimed the great Khan of all Mongols, finally creating the unified force that would conquer the world. Our number 7 spot goes to the first invasion of the Western Xia dynasty, starting in 1209. The Western Xia, a powerful Tangut kingdom, acted as a buffer state between the Mongols and the wealthy Jin Dynasty in China. Genghis Khan knew he couldn't attack the Jin with a potential threat at his back. This campaign was the Mongols' first major test against a fortified, sedentary state. They learned how to conduct siege warfare, a skill they would perfect in the years to come. Although they couldn't take the capital, they forced the Western Xia to submit as a vassal state, paying tribute and providing military aid. This secured their flank, gave them valuable resources, and served as a crucial training ground for their future, far larger campaigns. At number 6, we have the Great Raid into Eastern Europe, from 1221 to 1223. Following the Khwarazmian campaign, Genghis Khan sent his finest generals, Jeeb and Subutai, on an extraordinary reconnaissance mission. This wasn't a conquest, it was a deep, penetrating raid around the Caspian Sea. They smashed through the armies of Georgia and the Cumans before facing a massive coalition of Rus principalities at the Kalka River. In a stunning display of feigned retreats and tactical genius, the Mongols annihilated the much larger Rus army. This raid gathered vital intelligence on the lands, peoples, and armies of Europe, paving the way for the massive Mongol invasion of Europe to decades later. It was a terrifying announcement to the west of the storm that was gathering in the east. We're halfway through, and at number 5 is the final conquest of the Western Xia in 1227. Remember how they became vassals? Well, they refused to provide troops for the Mongol campaign against the Khwarazmian Empire, an act of defiance Genghis Khan would not tolerate. Now an old man, but still relentless, he launched a punitive expedition with one goal: annihilation. This was one of his most brutal campaigns. City after city was razed, and the Tangut people were systematically exterminated. It was during the final siege of their capital that Genghis Khan himself died. His final command was to utterly destroy the kingdom. This campaign is significant not only because it eliminated a rebellious state, but because it demonstrated the terrifying consequences of defying the Mongol will. It was a final, brutal lesson from the Great Khan. Entering our top 4 is the war against the Jin Dynasty. This was the big one, the one that truly established the Mongols as a global power. The Jin Dynasty ruled northern China and was immensely powerful and wealthy. The invasion began in 1211. What followed was a decades-long struggle. The Mongols, masters of open field battle, initially struggled against the massive fortified cities of the Jin, but they adapted. They used captured engineers and new siege technologies to break down walls that had stood for centuries. In 1215, they captured the Jin capital, Zhongdu, modern-day Beijing, in a siege that became legendary for its horror and scale. This war transformed the Mongol army from a nomadic horde into a sophisticated, multifaceted military machine, capable of toppling ancient civilizations. Now for our top 3. At number 3 is the pivotal Battle of 13 Sides in 1201. Before he was Genghis Khan, he was Temujin, locked in a bitter struggle against his former blood brother, Jamukha. Jamukha had assembled a massive coalition of tribes to crush Temujin once and for all. This was the moment of truth. Outnumbered, Temujin faced this grand alliance in a massive, sprawling battle. Through superior tactics and the unbreakable loyalty of his core followers, Temujin achieved a decisive victory. This battle shattered Jamukha's coalition and established Temujin as the dominant power on the Mongolian plateau. It was the turning point in his struggle for unification, the victory that put him on the direct path to becoming the Great Khan. Without this win, the Mongol Empire might never have been born. The runner-up, at number 2, is the conquest of the Khwarazmian Empire. This campaign, from 1219 to 1221, was an act of pure vengeance. After a Mongol trade caravan was massacred and its envoys executed by the Shah of Khwarazmia, Genghis Khan unleashed the full might of his empire. This wasn't just a war, it was an apocalypse for one of the most powerful empires in the Muslim world. The Mongols swept through Central Asia with terrifying speed and brutality. Legendary cities like Samarkand, Bukhara, and Urgench were utterly destroyed, their population slaughtered. The scale of the destruction was unprecedented. This war opened the Middle East to Mongol conquest, led to a massive transfer of knowledge and wealth to the Mongol capital, and cemented Genghis Khan's reputation as the scourge of God. And finally, the most important war of Genghis Khan, the one that stands above all others, is the unification of the Mongol tribes. This wasn't a single campaign, but a lifelong struggle that culminated in 1206, before Genghis Khan. The steppe was a chaotic patchwork of warring tribes: Tatars, Karaites, Naimans, Merkits, all locked in a constant, bloody cycle of raids and revenge. Temujin, through decades of diplomacy, betrayal, and relentless warfare, did the impossible. He broke the old tribal structures and forged them into a single, unified nation under his law, the Yasa. This act of unification was his ultimate masterpiece. It created the Mongol people as we know them and unleashed the single greatest military force the world had ever seen. Every other conquest, every other victory, was only possible because of this first, most fundamental war. It was the forging of the sword that would carve out an empire. From uniting scattered nomads to toppling ancient empires, the wars of Genghis Khan were not just battles for land. They were the violent birth pangs of a new world order. They showcase a story of strategy, adaptation, and ruthless ambition that continues to captivate us. What do you think? Did we get the order right? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic dives into history.